In the annals of crime history, few tales match the audacity and cunning of the Banco Central burglary at Fortaleza. Picture this. The year is 2005. A sum so staggering that it's hard to fathom, 160 million reais, vanishes from Brazil's Banco Central. Not through cybercrime or a high-speed chase, but an elaborate tunneling escapade. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill smash and grab. This was a heist that required the finesse of a ballet dancer, the precision of a surgeon, and the nerve of a high-wire acrobat. Over months, a gang of ordinary men transformed into subterranean moles, crafting a tunnel of dreams or nightmares, depending on which side of the law you're on. They tunneled beneath the bank, burrowed into the vault, and absconded with 3.5 tons of 50 real notes. An operation so grand it boggles the mind, so intricate it's almost admirable, so audacious it's downright cinematic. A plan so audacious it could be the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Behind every daring robbery there's a mastermind. In this case it was Luis Fernando Ribeiro. Now Ribeiro was not your average criminal. He was a visionary with a plan so audacious it could easily be mistaken for the plot of a Hollywood heist movie. Ribeiro and his gang began their meticulous groundwork several months before the heist. In a move that would make even the most seasoned real estate agent raise an eyebrow, they rented a property. But this wasn't for a family barbecue or a casual weekend getaway. No, this property was specifically chosen for its strategic location, just beneath the Banco Central. Now, getting beneath a bank vault is not as easy as digging a hole in your backyard. It requires more than just a shovel and a few hours of labor. It requires sophistication, precision, and a deep understanding of mathematics and engineering. And Ribeiro's gang, they had it all. Every night, under the cloak of darkness, they would descend into their makeshift tunnel, chipping away at the earth inch by inch towards their enormous payday. They had to ensure the tunnel was not only safe and stable, but also perfectly aligned with the bank's vault. One wrong calculation, one misguided dig, and the whole plan could crumble. But Ribeiro and his gang were not the type to leave things to chance. They used sophisticated equipment, mapping out their path with the precision of a surgeon. Their audacious plan was not just about tunneling, though. It was about remaining undetected, blending into the everyday hustle and bustle. To the outside world, they were just ordinary folks, running a landscaping business. But beneath the surface, literally and metaphorically, they were plotting one of the world's largest heists. The stage was set, the plan was in place. All they needed now was the perfect moment. In the dead of the night, the gang sprang into action. The city was fast asleep, oblivious to the audacious operation unfolding beneath its streets. The gang, armed with more than just shovels and pickaxes, had a plan that was as daring as it was ingenious. They had rented a property nearby, under the guise of a landscaping business. Beneath the surface, literally, they were tunneling their way to infamy. The excavation process was no simple task. The gang faced a labyrinth of underground utilities, risking electrocution, gas leaks, and even cave-ins. But they had done their homework. Their understanding of mathematics and engineering, combined with a dash of audacity, guided them through the maze of challenges. They moved earth and stone inch by inch, day by day, for several months, their sights set on the biggest prize of all, the Banco Central's vault. Navigating these complex challenges was just the first half of the game. Now, they were facing the vault that housed 3.5 tons of 50 real notes. Imagine the sight. Stack upon stack of currency, enough to make anyone's heart race. But the gang was cool-headed and calculated. They'd come too far to let their nerves get the better of them. With precision and stealth, they emptied the vault. The weight of the money was immense, but the thrill of their audacious act must have made it feel as light as a feather. They loaded their loot, each note bringing them closer to their audacious dream. As the sun rose, the gang vanished into thin air, leaving behind an empty vault and a stunned nation. The audacity of their act was yet to sink in. The city woke up to an ordinary day, oblivious to the extraordinary heist that had unfolded beneath their feet. It was a crime that would shake the nation to its core and etch a permanent mark in the annals of criminal history. The audacious heist sent shockwaves through the country. The aftermath was nothing short of chaotic. The Brazilian federal police, left grappling with one of the world's biggest heists, found themselves in a race against time. Their mission? To apprehend the culprits and recover the stolen millions. The police were swift in their response, launching an extensive investigation. Arrests followed one after the other as the law enforcement began to piece together the puzzle that was the Banco Central burglary. Yet despite their efforts, the majority of the stolen money remained elusive. The missing millions turned into an unsolved mystery, a specter that continues to haunt the corridors of the Banco Central to this day. In the midst of this pandemonium, a tragic twist unfolded. Luis Fernando Ribeiro, the mastermind of the heist, found himself on the wrong end of a kidnapping. Even in the world of crime, it seems, there are no guarantees of safety. Despite a ransom being paid, Ribeiro's fate was sealed. His life was abruptly ended, not by the hands of the law, but by fellow criminals. The audaciousness of the heist, the vast sum of money stolen, the tragic fate of Ribeiro, and the unsolved mystery of the missing millions, all combined to create a saga that captured the world's attention. But as the dust began to settle, it became clear that the effects of the heist were far from over. The investigation continued, new leads were followed, and the case kept throwing up more questions than answers. The Banco Central heist was not just a crime. It was a seismic event that shook Brazil to its core. It was a stark reminder of the audacity of criminals and the lengths they will go to satisfy their greed. But it also highlighted the determination and relentless pursuit of justice by the Brazilian federal police. The heist was over, but the ripple effects were just beginning. Even today, the Banco Central burglary at Fortaleza remains one of the world's most audacious heists. This daring escapade saw thieves tunneling into the vault of the Banco Central branch in Brazil, making off with approximately 160 million reais. To this day, only a fraction of the stolen fortune, about 20 million reais, has been recovered. The mastermind behind this grand operation, Luis Fernando Ribeiro, met a tragic end, kidnapped and killed despite a ransom being paid. The Banco Central burglary wasn't just a crime. It was a meticulously planned operation. The gang rented property, employing a deep understanding of mathematics and engineering to tunnel beneath the bank over several months. It's a testament to their sophistication that the Brazilian federal police are still untangling the complex web of criminal activities associated with the heist. The legacy of the heist extends beyond the immediate aftermath. It sent shockwaves through Brazil, triggering a reevaluation of security measures and crime prevention strategies. The audacity of the crime, the intrigue of the criminals, and the sheer magnitude of the heist influenced popular culture. It's been immortalized in books, films, and even in the lyrics of popular songs. The heist's influence wasn't restricted to Brazil. It made global headlines, drawing attention to the audacious lengths criminals might go to. It has become a reference point in discussions about security, a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that can exist even in seemingly impenetrable systems. The Banco Central burglary has become a symbol of audacity and cunning in the face of authority. It's a saga that has captivated the world's imagination, reminding us of the thin line between genius and criminality. Stories of the heist continue to circulate, each new detail adding another layer to the intrigue. A robbery that will forever be etched in the annals of crime history, reminding us that sometimes truth can indeed be stranger than fiction. In the quiet town of Tonbridge, England, a crime of such magnitude was about to unfold that it would etch its name in the annals of history. This is not a tale of some petty theft or a simple burglary. No, it's a story of a heist. And not just any heist, but the largest cash robbery in the United Kingdom's history. A staggering £53 million vanished into thin air from the Securitas Depot in Tonbridge. Now you might wonder, what exactly is this Securitas Depot? Let's just say it's where the Bank of England keeps a good chunk of its freshly printed pound sterling banknotes, an irresistible treasure trove for those with audacious hearts and nefarious intentions. Our story revolves around two key players. First, we have Emir Heisinaj, an inside man who knew the depot like the back of his hand. His knowledge was instrumental in orchestrating this grand scheme. Then there's Lee Murray, known as the alleged mastermind behind this audacious heist. A character so cunning and audacious that his name would forever be linked with this unprecedented crime. Murray and his gang didn't just wake up one day and decide to pull off the heist of the century. No, this was a masterpiece of criminal planning. They had all the elements of a Hollywood thriller: surveillance, prosthetic disguises, and even a chilling kidnapping. They held the depot manager and his family hostage, using them to bypass the security measures. The gang then tied up the workers at gunpoint, loaded the stolen money into a truck, and vanished without causing any physical harm. But how did such a meticulously planned crime come to be? Every heist has its plan, and this one was no child's play. Imagine a plan so intricate, so meticulously laid out, that it could only be the work of criminal masterminds. The Securitas Depot heist was just that. The criminals had a three-pronged approach to execute the heist: surveillance, an insider, and prosthetic disguises. The first element of the plan: surveillance. The criminals were not flying blind. They had eyes on the target, watching, studying, scrutinizing every move, every shift change, every delivery. They knew the depot like the back of their hand, even though they had never set foot inside. Next, their ace in the hole, their secret weapon, the insider, Emir Heisinaj. Heisinaj was not just any employee, he was the inside man. the key to unlocking the gates of the Securitas fortress. He provided the criminals with invaluable information that shaped their plan. Then came the prosthetic disguises, a touch of Hollywood in the heart of England. The criminals didn't just want to sneak in, they wanted to walk in, unnoticed, unquestioned. They transformed themselves into police officers, complete with uniforms and prosthetic masks, blending in seamlessly with the unsuspecting staff. Now, for the darkest part of the plan, the kidnapping. The depot manager, Colin Dixon, his wife, and their young son were abducted. Their lives hung in the balance, their safety a bargaining chip in this high-stakes game. Through coercion and threats, Dixon was forced to assist the criminals in bypassing the depot's security measures. Meanwhile, back at the depot, the workers were in for a night they would never forget. They were tied up at gunpoint, their lives reduced to mere obstacles in the path of the criminals. Their safety was secondary to the millions waiting in the vaults. So there you have it, a plan so audacious, so daring, it could only have been the work of those on the fringes of society. With the stage set, the heist was ready to commence. On the fateful night of February 22, 2006, the quiet town of Tunbridge was oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. In the stillness of the night, a meticulously planned heist was set into motion. The unsuspecting depot manager, Colin Dixon, became the linchpin of this audacious plot. Unbeknownst to him, his family was about to be drawn into a whirlwind of crime and chaos. It began with the abduction of Dixon and his family. A terrifying ordeal, but the criminals were clear. No harm would come to them if they cooperated. The gang, armed and disguised, used this leverage to manipulate Dixon, coercing him into a role he never applied for. Their inside man. The depot, operated by Securitas, was about to witness the largest cash heist in UK history. Dixon, under the fierce pressure of his family's safety, assisted the gang in evading the security measures. It was a chilling dance of crime, performed with precision and audacity. Then, the moment of truth arrived. The gang, with Dixon's coerced assistance, accessed the banknotes. The sight must have been something to behold. 53 million pounds, ready for the taking. The gang wasted no time. The money was swiftly loaded onto a truck, a process that must have felt agonizingly slow, and yet all too fast. The enormity of the task was complete. One can only imagine the adrenaline coursing through the veins of the criminals as they pulled away from the depot, the truck heavy with stolen wealth. With no physical harm caused, the culprits escaped, leaving a stunned nation in their wake. The quiet town of Tunbridge, and indeed, the whole of the UK, woke up to the news of a heist so audacious, it would be etched in the annals of crime history. In the aftermath of the heist, the law enforcement was left scrambling for leads. With the largest cash heist in UK history under their belt, the criminals had disappeared, leaving the authorities in a whirlwind of questions and a scarcity of answers. The initial investigations were a frenzy. The law enforcement, desperate to solve the case, briefly detained 3 individuals in connection with the crime. Their hope was short-lived, as they were forced to release them without charges due to lack of substantial evidence. In a bid to encourage public involvement, a hefty reward of £2 million was offered for any information leading to the arrest of the culprits. Despite the meticulous plan that led to the successful heist, the criminals were not as clever in covering their tracks. It was their arrogance and sloppiness that eventually led to their downfall. One by one, they started falling into the hands of the law, like dominoes tipped by their own hubris. The inside man, Emir Heisenaj, was among those convicted, his role in the crime leaving an indelible stain on the Securitas depot. The alleged mastermind, Lee Murray, fled to Morocco, but his flight from justice was short-lived. He was eventually imprisoned upon extradition, his dreams of a life of luxury fueled by stolen wealth shattered. By the year 2016, about £32 million of the stolen money remained unrecovered. Despite the arrests and convictions, the case was far from closed. The jigsaw puzzle of the Securitas depot robbery still had missing pieces, the most notable of them being the one key accomplice who remains at large, but this was not the end, for one key accomplice was still at large. In every crime, there are always loose ends. Now let's talk about Lee Murray, the alleged mastermind of this grand scheme. Like a scene straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, he fled to Morocco after the heist. But you know what they say about crime? It doesn't pay, and it certainly didn't for Murray. He didn't bask in the Moroccan sun for long before he was nabbed and tossed into prison. It's a twist that would make any scriptwriter proud. Yet, as we tie up the loose ends, there's a glaring knot that remains untied. A whopping £32 million is still missing. The authorities are still on the hunt, but it's proving to be a game of hide and seek on a grand scale. The money, it seems, has vanished into thin air. much like the hopes of the criminals who thought they could pull off the heist of the century. And then there's the shadowy figure, the key accomplice who's still at large. This individual, like a ghost, has managed to evade capture and remains a mystery. It's believed that they hold the key to the missing money. Now, wouldn't that be a plot twist to end all plot twists? As we draw the curtain on this tale of audacity, disguise, and betrayal, it's clear that the story is far from over. The search continues, the questions remain, and the loose ends, well, they're still loose. Thus, the largest cash heist in UK history remains an unsolved puzzle, with some pieces still missing. On a typical Sunday in July 1987, an unassuming safety deposit center in Knightsbridge, England, was about to become the stage for an infamous crime. Our story begins with Valerio Vice, a notorious Italian criminal known for his charm, intellect, and audacious exploits. The safety deposit center in Knightsbridge was no random choice. This affluent district was home to some of the most opulent shops and residences in the world, and beneath the surface of this high-end neighborhood was a labyrinth of vaults, housing everything from family heirlooms to illicit fortunes. Vice, with his sharp mind and ruthless ambition, had his sights set on this treasure trove. He knew that pulling off such a feat would require meticulous planning and a team of accomplices as daring as he was. For months, Vice and his crew studied the center, learning every detail of its operations. They knew when the guards changed shifts, when the vaults were busiest, and when they were most vulnerable. As they plotted, the team also prepared for the physical challenges of the heist. They amassed an arsenal of tools, weapons, and disguises to help them infiltrate the center, and more importantly, escape without a trace. Vice even went so far as to rent a nearby property, providing a convenient hideout just a stone's throw from their target. But this was more than just a theft. For Vice, this was a grand performance, a daring feat of audacity and cunning. It was a chance to make history, to leave a mark that would resonate across the criminal underworld and beyond. With everything in place, Vice and his accomplices were ready to execute their audacious plan. The date was the 12th of July, 1987, a day that would etch itself in the annals of crime history. A typical summer day in Knightsbridge, England, but unbeknownst to everyone, a meticulously planned plot was about to unfurl. Valerio Vice, a man with an infamous reputation in the underworld, and his accomplices sauntered into the safe deposit center. Their outward calm belied the audacious act they were about to commit. Disguised as potential customers, they requested a visit to the vault. Once inside, they made their move. With swift precision, they overpowered the guards, seizing control of the facility. The gang then started the next phase of their daring plan. They placed a closed sign on the center's door, ensuring no interruptions while they worked. They then began to plunder the safety deposit boxes one by one. Cash, jewels, silver, they swept up an unimaginable wealth. The process was laborious, but their determination didn't waver. Time was of the essence, and they worked with a ruthless efficiency. The center, usually a fortress of security, was rendered helpless under their control. The staff watched in horror as the criminals laid their hands on the treasures locked away in the vault. The audacity, the sheer nerve of it all was staggering. But the gang was not there to make friends. They were there for the loot, and they were getting it. The operation took hours, yet to the outside world, nothing seemed amiss. The robbers, in their cunning, had engineered the perfect crime. By the time they walked out of the center, they were considerably richer, their loot estimated at a staggering £60 million. In the aftermath, the robbers vanished, leaving behind a shaken staff and a mystery to be unraveled. As the dust settled, investigators descended on the scene, their task, to catch those responsible for the audacious heist. They were faced with an uphill battle. The audacity of the crime scene was staggering. A safe deposit center in Knightsbridge, once brimming with millions, now sat empty and desolate. With no immediate leads, the pressure was mounting. The police had to act, and fast. The initial phase of the investigation saw Scotland Yard cast a wide net, detaining 9 suspects in total. Among them were 2 Israelis, an Englishman, and an Italian. The international mix of suspects led authorities down a rabbit hole of speculation. Could the mafia be involved? Or was this an inside job? While theories abounded, the investigators kept their cool, meticulously combing through the crime scene, looking for that one breakthrough that could crack the case wide open. And then it happened. A bloody fingerprint, left carelessly at the scene. A rookie mistake, one might say, but in the world of crime, even the most seasoned criminals slip up. The fingerprint pointed to one man, Valerio Vice, a notorious Italian criminal known for his audacious exploits. Vice, no stranger to the world of crime, had left behind the one thing that could and would lead the police straight to him. It was a significant breakthrough, a golden thread in a complex tapestry of crime. But Vice wasn't an easy man to pin down. He was elusive, a ghost in the machine. The investigators knew they had their work cut out for them, but they also knew they were close. The chase was on, and it was only a matter of time before they would catch up with the mastermind behind the largest peacetime robbery ever. The clue was small but significant, leading the investigators straight to Vice. The game of cat and mouse was on. Vice, now a wanted man, was running out of places to hide. As the investigation into the Knightsbridge security deposit robbery gained momentum, authorities were hot on the trail of the culprits. Among the clues left behind, one would prove pivotal in cracking the case wide open: a single, bloody fingerprint. Left behind in the rush of the heist, this fingerprint was more than just a smudge on a safe deposit box. It was a calling card, a signature left behind by Vice himself. You see, every fingerprint is unique, like a snowflake, and in the world of crime and justice, it's as good as a signed confession. Investigators ran the fingerprint through their database, and there it was, a match. Valerio Vice, a notorious Italian criminal. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. The audacity of the heist, the meticulous planning, the sheer scale of the robbery, it all pointed to Vice. Now identified, the hunt for Vice intensified. Scotland Yard, along with international law enforcement agencies, joined forces to track down the elusive criminal. Their efforts weren't in vain. With his face plastered on wanted posters and news bulletins, Vice was running out of places to hide. And then the break they were waiting for. A tip-off led the authorities to Vice's location. Surrounded with no way out, the game of cat and mouse reached its inevitable conclusion. Vice was cornered, his options dwindling down to surrender or face the consequences. But Vice, ever the gambler, chose to play his final card. He attempted to resist, to fight back. But against the might of the law, his efforts were futile. In the end, he was arrested, his reign of freedom abruptly cut short. Cornered and captured, Vice's reign as a free man was over. With Vice behind bars, the final chapter of the Knightsbridge security deposit robbery was being written. The aftermath of the Knightsbridge heist was a dizzying whirl of courtroom drama, police investigations, and a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Valerio Vice, the charismatic Italian mastermind behind the robbery, was put on trial. The man who once sauntered into the safe deposit center with audacious confidence was now confined behind the cold steel bars of a British prison. The evidence was overwhelming, not least of which was the bloody fingerprint Vice had carelessly left at the scene. The court's gavel came down hard, a sentence of 22 years for orchestrating one of the largest peacetime robberies ever. But Vice's story didn't end there. In a twist that could only be described as Hollywood-esque, Vice found himself briefly tasting freedom. Yet the allure of his old ways proved too strong. His return to the world of crime culminated in a fatal gunfight with the police during a day release in the year 2000. The man who had once held the world at his fingertips met a violent end on the streets of Italy. Meanwhile, back in England, Scotland Yard was making headway. A significant amount of the stolen items were recovered, and 9 suspects were detained in connection with the heist. Yet the exact total of the stolen loot remained a mystery. Rumors swirled around the unreported losses, whispers of depositors who preferred to remain silent. Perhaps these safe deposit boxes had not been holding family heirlooms or business documents, but the illicit gains of other criminal enterprises. The Knightsbridge security deposit robbery remains one of the most audacious heists in history, a crime that continues to fascinate and intrigue. Picture this: Baghdad, 2007, a city under siege, and amidst this chaos, a heist of epic proportions. The stage was set at the Dar es Salaam Investment Bank, a financial institution that would soon find itself at the heart of the largest bank robbery in history. Now, when we talk about large, we're not talking pocket change. We're looking at a whopping 282 million American dollars. That's a lot of zeros, right? But here's the twist. This wasn't your typical masked bandit scenario. No, this was an inside job. The very people trusted to protect the bank, the security guards, were the prime suspects. It's like leaving a cat to guard a fish market. You can only imagine how that would turn out. Of course, this was no laughing matter. The heist took place during the height of the Iraqi Civil War, a time when the city was in turmoil and law enforcement resources were stretched thin. The ensuing investigation was like trying to find a needle in a haystack that was on fire and in the middle of a war zone. As the dust settled, questions began to swirl. Why such large cash reserves? Was there government corruption involved? What about the sectarian militias? The plot thickened, but the answers remained elusive. In the end, no one was brought to justice. The stolen millions vanished like a mirage in the desert. The bank continued to operate for over a decade post-robbery. a testament to its resilience or perhaps a symbol of the audacity of the crime. In the midst of a war-torn city, no charges were ever filed. The perfect crime, some might say. Fast forward to 2016, the battlefield has changed. This time it's a war waged in the digital realm. The stage shifts to Bangladesh, and the weapon of choice is no longer a gun but a keyboard. In February, the Bangladesh bank fell victim to a cyber heist of monumental proportions. Our antagonists, hackers of unknown origin, issued fraudulent instructions through the SWIFT network, the global payment system that banks use to transfer money. Their audacious goal? To siphon off a staggering $1 billion from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York account of Bangladesh Bank. Now, here's where things get interesting. The hackers were successful in transferring only a fraction of their initial target. $101 million made its way into their clutches. $81 million was directed to the Philippines, while $20 million found its way to Sri Lanka. The Federal Reserve Bank, perhaps finally sensing something amiss, blocked the remaining transactions. So what becomes of stolen funds in the digital age? Well, they take a scenic tour through various casinos, getting laundered along the way. Some of the funds even enjoyed a little vacation in Hong Kong. Investigations revealed that the hackers had planted malware in the Bangladesh bank system a month prior to the heist. This discovery highlighted the vulnerabilities in the SWIFT global payment network and raised suspicions of possible inside involvement. In a world where everything is going digital, so too is crime. The heists of old were marked by masked faces and empty vaults. Today, the fingerprints are digital. And the vaults, well, they're just lines of code. The battlefield has indeed changed, but the war remains the same. In the aftermath of these heists, the question remains, how were they able to pull it off? Let's first delve into the Baghdad heist. In the wake of the theft, suspicions were immediately raised about potential government corruption and the involvement of sectarian militias. It was a time of civil war in Iraq, and resources for law enforcement were scarce, to say the least. The bank's guards, who were believed to be the orchestrators of the heist, somehow managed to make off with $282 million American dollars and a substantial amount of Iraqi dinars. The lack of police resources hindered the investigation, and no charges were ever filed. The heist raised eyebrows about the bank's unusually large cash reserves and pointed fingers towards potential government corruption. The Dar es Salaam Bank, the unfortunate victim of this heist, continued to operate for over a decade post-robbery before finally closing its doors in 2018. The incident, however, remains a stark reminder of a broader history of large-scale thefts by heads of state against their own country's banking systems. Now, shifting our focus to the Bangladesh bank cyber heist, the plot thickens. The aftermath of this heist was a whirlwind of investigations and discoveries. It was revealed that malware had been installed in the bank's system a month prior to the heist. Insiders were suspected to be involved, as the hackers had issued fraudulent instructions via the SWIFT network to transfer nearly $1 billion American dollars from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York account of Bangladesh Bank. In a twist straight out of a Hollywood movie, only $101 million were successfully transferred, with $81 million going to the Philippines and $20 million to Sri Lanka. The remaining transactions were blocked by the Federal Reserve Bank. The stolen funds were then laundered through casinos, and some were even transferred to Hong Kong. The Bangladesh Bank engaged World Informatics Cybersecurity for a forensic investigation, and the Philippines National Bureau of Investigation probed a Chinese-Filipino individual for money laundering. Despite the best efforts of investigators, many questions remain unanswered. These heists, while vastly different, share a common theme: the audacity of the criminals and the ingenuity of their plans. In the aftermath of these daring escapades, the world was left grappling with a new understanding of what was possible in the realm of high-stakes crime. Both incidents, the Baghdad bank heist and the Bangladesh bank cyber theft, forced a significant shift in the way financial institutions approach security. The Baghdad heist, for instance, exposed the vulnerabilities of physical security measures, especially in regions grappling with political instability. This audacious theft compelled banks worldwide to reassess their security protocols, giving rise to more stringent measures. It was a stark reminder that even the most fortified of vaults could be compromised from within. On the other hand, the Bangladesh bank cyber heist served as a wake-up call to the financial world about the threats posed by cybercriminals. It highlighted the urgent need for robust digital security systems and stringent protocols to safeguard against sophisticated cyber attacks. This incident led to a global push for stronger cybersecurity measures, with banks investing heavily in advanced protection software and training their staff to spot and mitigate potential threats. These heists haven't just changed banking security. They've become legendary in the annals of true crime history. The audacity of the Baghdad theft, the cunning of the Bangladesh bank hackers. These stories continue to captivate and serve as a grim reminder of the lengths to which criminals will go to bypass the law. Efforts to prevent similar crimes continue unabated. Banks are now more vigilant than ever, constantly updating their security measures to stay one step ahead of potential perpetrators. From biometric authentication to advanced encryption techniques, the legacy of these heists is a world that is ever more security conscious. In the end, it's a reminder that in a world of high-stakes crime, the only predictable thing is unpredictability. As we delve into the world of heists, one thing becomes clear. The audacity of these criminals is matched only by the magnitude of their crimes. Consider the Baghdad heist, where guards became robbers, making off with a staggering $282 million. An inside job carried out under the chaos of war. Or take the Bangladesh bank cyber heist, where hackers cunningly exploited the SWIFT network to transfer a cool $101 million. A crime of the digital age where keyboards replaced guns. These heists aren't just notable for their scale, but for their lasting impacts. In Iraq, the theft raised questions about government corruption and the involvement of sectarian militias. In Bangladesh, the heist highlighted vulnerabilities in the global payment network, pushing banks worldwide to reassess their security measures. The audacious criminals, the meticulous planning, the high-stakes getaway, and the lasting fallout, they all form a narrative that's as engaging as any Hollywood thriller. In the world of true crime, the stories are often stranger than fiction. Imagine a heist so audacious, it makes your run-of-the-mill bank robbery look like a child's piggy bank raid. We're talking billions. Yes, you heard that right. Billions with a B. In the heart of Iraq, a scandal so grand unfolded that it left the entire world in shock. This was no ordinary crime. This was the heist of the century. A staggering $2.5 billion, a sum so immense it's hard to even comprehend. It was not stolen from a vault or a safe, but siphoned away from the state funds, the lifeblood of the nation. Orchestrated by a well-connected businessman and executed with the help of high-ranking officials, this scheme was a masterclass in corruption and deceit. It was not just a robbery, it was a brutal assault on the economy, a crippling blow to the country's politics. Imagine the scale of this crime. Picture the number of zeros in $2.5 billion. It's an amount that could alter the fate of a nation, and in this case, it did. Now let's dive into the intricate web of this audacious crime. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. Behind every great heist, there's a mastermind, and in this case, it was a well-connected businessman aided by a gang of corrupt officials. Now let's delve into the key characters involved in this scandal, their roles, and how they facilitated the heist. Imagine a spider spinning its web. The mastermind is at the center, a well-connected businessman with a will to exploit the system. He was the puppet master, pulling the strings, orchestrating every move with precision. But what's a puppet master without his marionettes? Enter his gang of corrupt officials, the pawns in this epic game of chess. Every move calculated, every piece strategically placed. From high-ranking officials to the seemingly insignificant, each had a role to play. They were the gears in this well-oiled machine, ensuring the mastermind's plans were executed flawlessly. Among the implicated were various government institutions. The Prime Minister's office, the Central Bank, the Tax Commission, each a spoke in this wheel of corruption. Their roles were varied, but their goal was unified, to siphon off billions in tax revenues. The scheme was clever, audacious even. Money laundering through real estate purchases in Baghdad. It was their golden goose, laying billion-dollar eggs. And all the while, the puppet master and his pawns danced their dance of deceit. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about power, control, the thrill of the game. Amidst political turmoil and power struggles, they found their playground. It was the perfect storm, a cloak of chaos, under which they could operate unseen, unchecked. Yet, even the most elaborate plans can unravel. Even the most cunning puppet master can lose control of his marionettes. And as the plot thickened, the web began to fray. But how did they manage to pull off such a monumental theft? That's where the plot thickens. A heist of this magnitude doesn't happen overnight. It was a carefully orchestrated scheme, played out over time. Now let's dive into the grand scheme of this audacious operation. Imagine a spider weaving a web of deceit and corruption, with strands reaching out to every corner of the government. This is essentially what happened in Iraq. The mastermind, a well-connected businessman, leveraged his contacts and influence to execute a scheme that would make even the most seasoned con artist blush. The plot was simple yet ingenious. Siphon off billions in tax revenues and launder it through real estate purchases in Baghdad. But this wasn't a one-man job. Oh no, this scheme required a symphony of corruption, a harmony of high-ranking officials willing to turn a blind eye, and the audacity of a maestro who dared to conduct this illicit orchestra. The businessman had his pawns in all the right places. The Prime Minister's office, the central bank, the tax commission, all implicated, all entangled in the web. Each played their part, knowingly or unknowingly, in the grand symphony of deceit. And what of the money? Well, it flowed like a river through the veins of the city, invisible to the naked eye. It was laundered through the purchase of real estate, buildings rising from the ground like monuments to corruption, the concrete embodiment of the grand scheme. A testament to the audacity of the plot, these buildings stood tall, casting long shadows over the city of Baghdad. The beauty of this scheme lay in its complexity. It was so intricate, so expansive, that it was almost impossible to trace back to its source. It was a masterpiece of deception, a testament to the length some would go to satisfy their greed. And just when you thought this couldn't get any more scandalous, let's take a trip back in time. March 18th, 2003, 3 trucks led by Qusay Hussein, son of the infamous dictator Saddam Hussein, withdrew nearly $1 billion from the Central Bank of Iraq. Now let's rewind our clocks a bit, shall we? Over 2 decades ago, a similar incident unfolded, but this time it was under the watchful eye of a despot. Qusay Hussein, the son of Saddam Hussein, orchestrated a heist of his own, making away with a staggering sum of nearly $1 billion. Picture this: 3 trucks, their engines humming in the dead of night, pulling up at the Central Bank of Iraq. They weren't there for a midnight snack, no. They were there to empty the vaults. And empty they did, hauling away a king's ransom in cold, hard cash. Fast forward to the present day, and it seems like history has an uncanny knack for repeating itself. 2 heists, both in the same country, both involving astronomical sums of money, and both leaving a trail of questions in their wake. Could it be that the earlier heist served as a blueprint for the latter? Perhaps in the dark underbelly of the criminal world, the audacity of the 2003 heist was seen not as a cautionary tale, but an inspiration. After all, if Qusay Hussein could do it, why couldn't they? But while these heists may seem similar on the surface, there is a key difference. In 2003, the money was taken under the cover of an impending invasion. The recent heist, however, occurred amidst political turmoil and internal power struggles, exposing deep-rooted corruption within the government itself. The parallels between these 2 heists are striking, and yet they paint a picture of a nation grappling with corruption at the highest levels. The audacity of these criminals is matched only by the scale of their heists, leaving us to wonder just how deep the rabbit hole goes. 2 massive heists, billions at stake, and a nation left to pick up the pieces. But what does it all mean? As the dust settles, the colossal impact of these heists becomes clear. It's not just about the money, it's about a nation's trust, shattered. The reverberations of these grand larcenies echo far beyond the vaults of the Central Bank of Iraq or the real estate market in Baghdad. The implications seep into the very fabric of Iraqi society, unearthing a system steeped in corruption, power struggles, and political turmoil. The embezzlement scandal, christened the heist of the century, was not merely a clandestine operation. It was a symptom of a larger malaise, an indication of the deep-rooted corruption within the government. High-ranking officials were implicated, revealing the extent of the patronage networks that had been festering within the system. With these scandals unfolding against the backdrop of political instability, they served to highlight the fragile state of affairs in Iraq. The trust of the Iraqi people in their government was shaken, if not outright shattered. The faith in the institutions that were meant to safeguard their interests was eroded. The power struggles and political turmoil, already a part of the Iraqi landscape, were exacerbated by these events. The scandals became a catalyst, a spark that ignited the simmering tensions. They brought to the fore the harsh reality of a nation grappling with corruption at the highest levels. And let's not forget the economic implications. The stolen billions represent resources that could have been used for the betterment of the Iraqi people. They could have funded infrastructure, healthcare, education, but instead, they lined the pockets of a few. Furthermore, the heists cast a long shadow over Iraq's international image. They raised questions about the country's governance, financial controls, and its ability to manage and protect its resources. This could potentially deter foreign investment, hampering Iraq's economic growth. In the grand scheme of things, these heists are a stark reminder of the insidious nature of corruption and how it can shake a nation to its core. As we wrap up our journey into the heart of these audacious heists, we're left with some chilling realities. We've delved into the unfathomable scale of these operations, from the theft of $2.5 billion in tax revenues to the looting of $1 billion from the Central Bank of Iraq. These aren't just numbers, they're a testament to the audacity and cunning of the key players involved. We've also explored the intricate web of corruption and deceit spun by the masterminds behind these schemes, from high-ranking officials to well-connected businessmen. These individuals manipulated systems, exploited their positions, and laundered money through real estate purchases in Baghdad, all while the nation was embroiled in political turmoil and power struggles. But perhaps the most chilling reality of all is the devastating impact these heists have had on the country. They've exposed deep-seated corruption, destabilized institutions, and undermined public trust. In the end, the heist of the century serves as a stark reminder of the lengths people will go for power and money, and the devastating impact it can have on a nation.